Hawaiian also, which is the open tuning, open G tuning for those of you guitar aficionados, which is kind of where that came from. This next song, I don't think I've ever performed this out live. Trying to think of it. So this is a world premiere here. So, I'll have to call the fake news. This is kind of a strange song the way this one evolved, because when you're writing, a lot of times you're playing around with different chords and patterns and things. And I was just messing around up the neck on the guitar here, sliding around, just kind of doing. Kind of messing around. That was kind of a neat thing. So I came up with that lick. I thought that's really kind of cool, and I realized that sometimes when you have all this stuff in the back of your head, Maureen was telling me she'll hear a song 5 years later and remember she heard it with somewhere there. But so you have all this stuff running around the back of your head, kind of like when Vanilla Ice wrote Ice Ice Baby and didn't realize he was actually playing. Was it not Under Pressure? What is it? What's the Queen song? Under Pressure.
Yeah, Under Pressure.
So he didn't realize there's a lot of stuff goes around, and Ed Sheeran wrote a song. I thought it was really neat, and it was basically a Tom Petty song. He was sued. And so anyway, there was this. I realized what the origin of this thing was, and the origin was a field holler of all things. That I had listened to from Kerner, Ray, and Glover way back in the day. So what I did was I decided, well, I'll just kind of put that together, and I'll write a couple of new verses for it, and we'll kind of have a little collaboration with some old field holler. But this is the original field holler. I didn't realize until a few weeks after I put the melody together. Now, what happened way back in the day when they used to work on the railroad tracks a lot, they would have to line the track, and they would go out of line from the heat or whatever, and they would have these crews of these workers, prisoners or whoever, and they would take these long metal bar things, and they would bend them to go in, and so they did these field while they were working to keep their rhythm together, to be able to move these huge steel rails. You would put that together, and that's how they repair the track. But this is the original field holler. It goes like this. Oh boys, easy ride, done got right. All I hate about line and track, these old bars about to bust my back. Oh boys, can't you line a track like? Oh boys, can't you line a track like a? Oh boys, can't you line a track? See Eloise go lining track. Mary, Mark, and Luke, and John, all them prophets are dead and gone. Oh boys, can't you line a track like? Oh boys, can't you line a track like a? Oh boys, can't you line a track? See Eloise go lining track. Oh. So that was the original thing. That was pretty cool. So I didn't realize that was actually going on there. So you'll hear a little bit of that in here, and a couple more verses. I said, I hope boys ain't you right, done got right. All I hear about lining track is these old bars about to bust my back. I said, these old bars are about to bust my back. These old roads are taking me back where I belong. Kick the dust off of my boots, saying you there this lonesome song, singing you that lonesome song. But if I keep searching high and low, looking for a sign, I will know where to live my life, working on this railroad line, working on this railroad line. I said, hold boys, ain't you right? Done got right. All I hate about line and track, these old bars about to bust my back. These old bars about to bust my back. These old bars about to bust my back. I said, these old bars about to bust my back. Don had asked if I hadn't played this in a while, so I'm going to give it a try. It's another instrumental I usually do on the 12 string. This was kind of inspired when I used to work for the man in the corporate world. I got these junkets I used to go on there, so it was kind of nice. And I decided at one point when I had a chance to take an early retirement, it wasn't worth having a wonderful 2-week vacation every year to be miserable the other 50. So you kind of have to balance it out there some way. But anyway, we were out in Sedona, Arizona, and stayed at the Enchantment Resort. And we decided to go on a hike. And it was in the middle of this beautiful canyon. And it started out as a sunny day. And then as we kind of hiked this right along the creek, and all these animals were around, and there's horses there, I was trying to remember. And then there was this real brief afternoon thunder shower that came in, just the lightning and thunder, just rained for a couple minutes, and the sun came back out. And I was thinking about that hike, and as I put together this instrumental, kind of that was where the title came from, In the Canyon.
We'll do that.
3 o'clock almost.
I think one more.
Maybe two.
No, okay, maybe two. Like anybody's ever gonna say stop. But then we'll have the same problem with Kimberly.
We'll do one.
Yeah.
So,
We'll make the second one not court.
okay, it's amazing the history and perspective and how, you know, in some ways Donald is right. There is fake news. It is. It's not so much about Donald as everything is about Donald and Donald. But, when you look at the history of our country and what's going on, I think the latest example is with the country of Iran, the great evil axis of Iran. I don't know if you've ever known any Iranians or Persian people are the most beautiful, peaceful people in the world. It's a wonderful country. Granted, there's the schisms that I still, without getting too much into religion, you know, it still amazes me that there's a religion where they are killing each other because one thought that the next prophet was the guy's son and the other was the guy's brother. And, you know, it's a weird thing in the Middle East with all these people fighting against each other under the same religion. And if you look at the history of Iran, just the recent history of Iran, which I was not quite aware of this, and I have to read about this in 2 different places, Iran happens to have oil. Seems like it goes back to that, no matter where you are in
it goes
history.
back.
It's oil, gold, silver, uranium, whatever it is. You go into the country, you buy off the leader, they hire an army to oppress the people, and you take all the stuff out, you know, and rinse and repeat. You know, it goes on and on and on. And the amazing thing about Iran and this why is we so all this animosity towards Iran, and why do you hear this death to America all this time? Well, you have to say death to America. But anyway, if you look at the recent history, and I don't know how many of you are aware of this, that Iran actually had in the 50s, they had a democracy. They had a democratically elected president of Iran. He was elected by the people. It was a regular election. But what he decided to do was something kind of radical, and he basically kicked out British Petroleum and said, I'm going to nationalize the oil fields, because these oil fields belong to all the people of Iran. And why should we have an outside country take all these profits and destroy our country? And so what we're going to do is we're going to have the oil, we're going to nationalize the oil fields, and we're going to use the profits for our people. So British Petroleum wasn't real happy about that. So the Prime Minister of England came to the United States, or called the President of the United States, and said, this isn't fair. And by the way, Iran also called the President of the United States and said, listen, we just elected a democratically elected president, you know, we'd like your support. Well, you can guess who won. The United States hired the CIA. They had a budget of $1 million to do a coup and overthrow the legitimately elected, democratically elected president of Iran. They did it for $60,000. They thought it was a deal. So for $60,000, they overthrew the president of Iran. They put the Shah of Iran in. They brought British Petroleum back in, and they started taking all the oil out of the country again. So that's where this started, this resentment of why they are so resentful of America, because they came in and they literally took a democratically elected president away from them. And then when there was another problem with them, because the guy next door, and this will be a familiar name, Saddam Hussein, was starting to attack Iran. And so the United States then supplied Saddam Hussein with all these military weapons so he could go in and raid Iran. So it didn't really, and how did that turn out for us?
Yeah.
On the other end. So you look at these things that have happened over time in the country, and you think about what the impact is, and it's always about the money, and it's always about the oil. And right now, today, and what's really been frightening, and I don't want to get too political here, but What upsets me is someone who was a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War, and I refused to go to Vietnam. And 50 years later, the McNamara and all these other guys admitted it was a scam. The Gulf of Tonkin wasn't real. The whole thing was based on a lie. And 50,000 men, young men, including my best friend in high school, died in that war. And it happened all over again in Iraq. And now we have the war on terror. And the war on terror is the open checkbook for every arms dealer forever. And where we are today, right now, we are bombing in 12 countries right now. 12 countries, including Somalia and Syria and Yemen. And drones and bombs are being dropped everywhere. And somehow we think if we drop enough bombs in these poor countries, that we'll be able to wipe out terror. And we don't realize that every time we drop another bomb, every time we send another drone, these poor people were just hatching them all over. And the copycats and everything else. I want to finish with one of my favorite covers. It's actually one of Kay's favorite covers, and she asked me to, she got me to learn this again. I hadn't heard it in a while. But this was written by Jackson Browne. And it was back when we invaded Central America in another war that the CIA went in and we knew nothing about. And in some ways, it's just as same. And by the way, I'm going to finish up with this because I'm going to give Kimberly a chance to come out and use it. I've been waiting for something to happen for a week or a month or a year, when a government lies to its people. I'm sorry, let me start over again. I need to do a redo here. Brought the lyrics. I've been waiting for something to happen for a week or a month or a year, when the blood and the ink of the headlines and the sound of the crowd in my ear. Don't you know what it takes to remember, when you know that you've heard it before? When a government lies to its people and a country is drifting to war, there are shadows on the faces of the men who send the guns to the wars that are fought in places where their business interests run. On the radio, talk shows and TV, you'll hear one thing again and again: how the USA stands for freedom, and we come to the aid of a friend. But who are the ones that we call our friends? Those governments killing their own, or the people who find they can't take anymore, so they pick up a gun or a brick or a stone. There are lives in the balance, there are people under fire, there are children in the cannons, and there's blood on the wire, and there's blood on the wire. On the radio, talk shows and TV, you hear one thing again and again: how the USA stands for freedom, and we come to the aid of a friend. Who are the ones we call our friends? These governments killing their own, all the people who find they can't take it, so they pick up a gun or a brick or a stone. There are lives in the balance, there are people under fire, there are children in the cannons, and there's blood on the wire. There are lives in the balance, there are people under fire, there are children in the cannons, and there's blood on the wire.
Just great, Thomas, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna take a